Hello, everyone. Welcome to Weekend Rental, episode 123. We are your gaming and geek culture podcast. As always, my name is Ryan, and I'm joined by Andy.
Hey.
All right, if you enjoy our content, head on over to geekade.com where you're going to find podcasts on video games, music, movies, comics, and so much more. Geekade.com, what's your geek? Feels like it's been a while since we've done an episode.
Yeah, switched it up a little bit.
Yeah, we added an extra week into our recording timeline, which won't, the users won't, or listeners won't have a clue, but for us, it feels like forever. So
yeah,
been like a million good things in gaming that have happened. Like Sony's and Lego are dumping $2 billion into Epic Games. There's a Halo series that dropped, but then there's this magical Kirby game that we're a little bit late on because it came out about a week and a half ago now. But that new Kirby game, anybody else played it?
No, I'm maybe in the next few weeks.
Yeah,
hoping to grab it, but
it's real good. I'll say that. I got it on launch day, started playing it with my son. And it's one of those things where it's like co-op the whole way through, right? And super charming, super straightforward. The difficulty curve is not worse than most Kirby games. It might be a little like there's more precision and moves to it than you might see in other games, but I don't know that makes it any more difficult. It's just you can play it better. But the only thing is like you play when you do the 2-player. The second person, doesn't have any of the abilities. You're just like an assist character. So the best part of a Kirby game is all the transformations and then the new moves where it's like, I forget the term for it, like the whole mouth curve. Like I forget, but he like eats things, like can't quite swallow them. So he just like fills up like with a car and a staircase and all sorts of goofy shit. And yeah, it was really good. But we got to a point, maybe like a third of the way through the game where my son was playing, mostly as the assist character, and I just felt like the charm and the fun here is being Kirby, right? So I was like, why don't you take over and I'm just gonna let you play as Kirby. And then I got my daughter involved because I was like, this is a perfect 2-player game for them. So then I just kind of sat there and watched them play from there on out and just let them experience it. And yeah, it was a huge hit.
Perfect for that age too.
Yeah, exactly. And it's charming and fun for adults, but yeah, it's, that 8 to 10 demographic is just, or maybe even younger. Perfect. They had a great time. There's a cute little hub city that you kind of build out, and Kirby has a home, and there's just little things that develop and businesses that open up, and a movie theater and a gachapon machine that we spent way too much money at. Yeah, it's all great. It's a little weird seeing Kirby in like this like pseudo apocalyptic human world that they loosely explain through a narrative. Not that it matters in a Kirby game. But yeah, it's super clever. I actually I think this Mario odifies better than Mario does. Like this fits better into this universe than like the weird transformations that you saw in Odyssey to me in a Mario game.
Sure. So is the post-apocalyptic stuff, is that the whole game, like most of the levels? Okay, I figured that was just like one world, but wow. No,
it's all set kind of in different human things, jungles, cityscapes, rooftops, beaches, mall. There's one in a mall, which you see from the trailer.
Sure.
But yeah, that's most of the game. It's pretty cool. And then there's little challenge elements where you can explore the overworld map and like unlock. It's not difficult to find, but you unlock these little like speed challenges where it's little timed segments. I'd almost say they're the Toad House equivalent to like 3D World.
Okay. Yeah.
And those are really fun and not challenging to even a casual player, but it's something to change the pace a little bit. Might be like top 3 Kirby games for sure. Highly recommend. Pretty sure there's like 30. There's 3 on Game Boy alone, aren't there? Yeah, pretty sure.
Is this the first 3D one, though?
It's the first fully 3D one. The 64 game had like the 3D polygons, but the 2D levels.
Yeah.
Same with the earlier stuff. I guess unless you're going to count Air Ride, could you count that as fully 3D, I suppose, to some extent?
Sure.
Yeah. Very polished, though. Incredibly polished. It's great.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really good to hear because usually Kirby games are just kind of like, thrown out there with a loose idea on the same basic framework that they've been doing for forever.
Yeah. Yeah, they really take like some simple ideas and just make them super wacky and fun. Like, mouthful mode. That's what it's called. Where you do mouthful mode and you grab a Coke vending machine and you just like blast all the enemies on the screen with like cans of pop. Stupid fun. And the best part was my son, you can unlock all these secrets and stuff. And there's like little things in the world. And I didn't even think about it, but you come up in this one level and you can do mouthful mode where you suck up an O, like a sign. And then he like just becomes a round Kirby, and he looks like an O. And we had passed through a sign on the way in. My son's like, oh, and he runs back to the foreground and fills in like a gap in kanji. Like he can't even read it. Like I didn't even think about it. And it's like, clink, like a little twinkly sound, and like unlocks some mystery thing.
Really?
Like how did you in passing understand that you needed to walk back and complete this sign? Like it was just so crazy. So there's lots of that, lots of little charm if you're willing to keep an eye out and just look for like odd things and little secrets. But yeah, really impressed with it. Like actually kind of amazingly impressed with it. I don't know that it's Game of the Year contender or anything, but I mean, it's certainly very good.
Yeah. I really fell off that last one on the Switch. I don't even remember the name of it.
Yeah, that Star Allies, is that it?
Yeah.
That one was pretty, unless you were like 2, that was not. Except for that epic battle. Like why do Kirby games always have these like bonkers battles? They're great. Yeah, that one I would agree is not fun. This one much, much, much better.
Huh.
And a good couch co-op. Like I said, it sucks for the person who's not Kirby, but you still can have a good time in there, like messing stuff up and whacking enemies in the head. So what have you guys been playing then?
Well, I would suggest your son probably pick up and try Tunic as well, because it seems like he's really good at finding those secret little things. That seems like the game to try.
Okay.
It's really charming.
It's on Game Pass, right?
Right. Yeah. Yep. So it's on Game Pass. And man, it's charming. It's kind of a Zelda-ish type game, but I don't know. It's a lot more of the puzzles, but so far, I would say most of the puzzles that I've gotten so far are kind of just hidden things,
okay.
Which is weird because, like, if you would know that it's there, you could basically almost get to where I've been in a few hours in like 10 minutes, probably. They just, I think it's like the perspective. You can't change the perspective at all.
Okay.
So they hide a lot of things between things and under things and behind things.
So you have to know that there's like a faux wall there and you're just like walking around the thing and okay.
Yep. So it's a lot of that. But I think the coolest part, I mean, I'm only probably 3 or 4 hours in, but it seems like the main thing that you're trying to do is collect these manual pages. And what's really cool about them is like the artwork on the manuals is it looks like an NES manual.
Okay, so you're like reassembling the game manual?
Yeah. So it's straight up like an NES game manual. It's got like overworld maps and it has like, key art of different characters in the game. And it's really cool that way. And then like you can zoom in on different areas of it. It tells you different clues. A lot of it is in a language that you can't understand. I don't know if that's like something you unlock as you go or if that's something you have to figure out. But but there'll be like little, like it looks like somebody circled something in pen on the map or something, like you would back in the day on an old NES map, you know?
Nice.
So that's where, you know, you have to really look at those manual pages to be like, oh, okay, there's something going on here.
That's pretty cool. Like the old video store rental with the manual in it with like cheat codes and tips written on it. That's cool.
Yeah.
And the gameplay is like Zelda-ish or Zelda-light, kind of like action adventure.
Yeah. Swing a sword. Use your shield here and there.
Nice.
You know?
Yeah, that one's been on my list. We just haven't gotten around to it yet. I'll have to get that installed. It looks like a lot of fun. I've heard nothing but good things.
Yep.
And I don't think it's too long, right?
I wouldn't think so. You know, you never know about those games, but I think it's kind of it seems like I'm almost done already, but I'm guessing it's one of those things like in Zelda where you're like, oh, I got the 3 things. And it's like, oh no, I'm just starting, you know?
Yep. I gotcha. Yeah, it looks neat. That one's been on my radar. I just need an excuse to get it installed. Well, I know a game that we all played and I uninstalled. So you might have heard us talking about it in previous episodes. Biff and I were playing this Generation Zero game on Game Pass. Then we started talking to Andy about it. And yeah, we all got in there and did a few more sessions. Biff is in and out on us tonight, so I don't know how much audio we're getting from him. And we completed Generation Zero. And I don't know, you got to fast forward a little bit, Andy, from like, you got the middle like segment of the game cut out. And I'm curious on your thoughts on how you felt as an overall package, even with the abbreviated version. Like, what's kind of your takeaway?
It's, it was really weird because it hits that part of my, you know, gameplay style where, especially like Fallout, where I'm in every room of every house in this big city, looting everything, even though I don't need it. I know I'm not going to need it. Don't use the shit. So I did like that first whole island and just loved it. I just was cruising. And I think then hopping on with you guys, hitting the late game, that might have been the perfect bow on that game for me, because I know I would have burnt out hard if I would have kept going the same way I was going.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I think you're right. I think like you nailed it for me too, because I think total I had close to 30 hours into this, and I think you can really slow down and do more. But it's like this game that really, it's got a lot of rough patches, but where its strong suit is in the world it creates, the visuals and the ambiance. Like all of that is fantastic, but it never builds or successfully develops upon the looting aspect to the extent of like a Fallout game, as you were saying. Like there's almost no value in it after the initial like few hours, right? Like you just, it's just diminishing returns. It's a game that should have played up to its strengths and then just tightened down the package, because I had fun in maybe like the first 8 hours. And then after that, you've really sort of seen everything. There's one like mid to late game twist where you find there's another enemy faction, but that doesn't change the gameplay in any meaningful way.
Sure.
So yeah, towards the end, I just found myself being like, I've had enough of this. You know what I mean? It's the same like intense encounters, although they become less intense because you're finding better ammo and better guns and you're getting better at killing everything. And it just kind of like builds into like a slog, I guess is how I felt about it, with the inevitable no real payoff. And Biff lost internet connection for about the 4th time tonight, so I don't know if he's going to make it back for the wrap up of this conversation. But essentially what had happened was we had gotten the last couple sessions, we had become a party of 4, and we were progressing through the game. Biff and I had put the most time into the save on my game, So we're all playing with my save file, essentially, if you will, and progressing through it. And what happened was some more missions and areas opened up beyond what we thought was potentially the last mission. And I was just over it. Like, I was like, we need to finish this game tonight. Like, I'm done. Let's just knock all these off. So I broke off to go start progressing towards a few more marked missions. The three of you continued knocking out the last couple in the area we had just kind of progressed from. And in the process of doing that, you guys triggered a mission where it locked you into a bunker, demolished the bunker, then flashed to endgame credits saying you had survived. All the while preventing me from ever finishing the game because I wasn't in the bunker with you and it's forever destroyed now. So on my save file, I got screwed out of end credits because I just wasn't in the room with you guys at the time that happened. So that was just like, that was too much for me. It's so ridiculous for one that happened like that, and just so defeating too. And it's just like, no, I just want to get this over with. And I guess technically I did sorta, but I didn't. And
it was weird because I think when the game actually finished, I was the only one in the bunker.
Oh, really? Those guys had like ran out?
Because I think Biff was outside, and the fourth, he warped like right at the last second out of there to somewhere else. And then, yeah, it was just basically a huge explosion. But
then all three of you got credits and I didn't?
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if they were in, if it was because they were part of, they did something in the mission, or if they were in some radius to it. I don't know. But also, there's no way I survived that.
After that explosion, you're calling shenanigans?
Yeah, I think they made that thing, and then they're like, well, how are we going to get this player back in the open world to let him do other things? I'd just say he survived.
And it's sad because like there's good bones on Generation Zero, and I know there's a bunch of expansions, but like I can't imagine being a person who finished that and then was like, no, I need to go back in for more. Like, I don't know what those expansions would bring to it, I think the fact that there's just like this inherent like crafting and resource thing that doesn't really pan out in any meaningful way is just a missed opportunity in that game. And it's kind of what it needed, right? I think if you'd have added like structure crafting elements too, and like base building, it could have been a much different game. Yeah. It should have done one or the other. It should have really focused on a tighter narrative FPS game, which I think is its strength, and it should have done. Or it should have just gone a whole hog in the crafting and been more Ark-like, or, 7 Days to Die-like, and it just wasn't. And because of that, it just felt like an ambitious small team with a lot of ideas who couldn't quite pull it off.
Yeah, and the crafting that is in there, it's mostly for the basic stuff that you usually find along the way.
Right.
I mean, you can be in short supply of some of the things that you need, but I think some of the crafting, when you have that stuff in a game, it should be, I found that I can make this really cool thing that goes over and above the stuff that you can find
right
while looting, and it doesn't seem like there's any of that in there.
Yeah. Or weapon mods, right? Like take a normal gun, slap like a taser on the front of it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then there's the whole like weird aspect of clothing where there's really like a ton of clothes that are only cosmetic, and you can sort of get patterns to like pseudo upgrade clothes, but not in any meaningful way that I found. It was maybe like a +1 stat, nothing that's really going to contribute to meaningful differences. Right. So I guess maybe there is something to be said that those things are now in place in the base game and are heavily expanded upon in those expansions, because there are 3 or 4, I think, but I just can't imagine wanting to go back in and doing more of that.
Right. Well, especially the story. I mean, the world itself is awesome. The environment is really cool.
Yeah.
But that only takes you so far. And then the story itself is audio logs that are also in Swedish or something.
Yeah.
So you have to read the subtitles, and half of it is just like, we went over here, or the military is attacking over here.
And so much of it is just devoid of life too, which, I mean, I guess that world is supposed to be devoid of life, but I just mean it's devoid of anything of interest enemies or otherwise. There's just a lot of open space towards the later game.
Yeah, that is weird. I mean, when you hear all these audio logs, yet there's not one living person.
I know, not even a deer. I mean, there should have been. I don't know. It feels like there should have been something. I don't know. I could recommend that game to someone just like passively if you want to jump in a dumb co-op game and sink like maybe 5 to 8 hours into that, and I think you've seen the highlights. There's no reason to stick into the end game. I'd give it a strong play it. I would not give it a finish it. Oh.
Now, I would highly recommend playing for like 30 hours like you guys did, and then dumping your entire inventory into one small room.
Yes, the finale after some of us finished the game. Yeah, we teleported into a bunker, and everyone all game had been hoarding, I don't know, flares, propane tanks, landmines, grenades, and we loaded that room up and just pushed that game to its paces, and we got the frame rate to chug pretty hard a couple times.
Yeah, I can't believe that held up as good as it did, considering some of the other stuff I saw in that game was a little suspect.
Yeah, there's just something hilarious about like dudes in skirts running around with boomboxes blaring, shooting flares into the ceiling, and smoke grenades are going off.
The entire room is just smoke. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a pretty good end, I will say. It was a good send-off. Made up for the fact that I couldn't get credits on that game. I still have nightmares of those little shrieking spider things, though. Like that sound.
Yeah.
Can't unhear that.
That thing does definitely have, enemies where you just don't want to fuck with. Like there's...
Yes.
A lot of these type of games don't have that type of thing.
Yeah.
Maybe at first, and then you can get to them. But it seems like there's some of them in this game where it's just like, no, that's like, if you're going to take that down, that's damn near a raid boss,
Yeah. Yeah. It's like encounters where that you're going to deplete your entire inventory to take that thing down, and you're probably not going to recoup 1/3 of it.
Yeah.
And Biff and I had a night where we did that, and he's just like, no, I'm going for it. And there were 2 of them, and they kept spawning back to back, and he would keep engaging. And I was like, no. But yeah, there's some strong opposition in some of those things. But it's kind of fun too, like being in positions where you're just completely hosed, and the only way out is to just crawl your way through. The tension is very well done in that game.
Yeah, yeah,
for sure. Maybe Biff will come back here. We're not sure. Otherwise, it might be a 2-man show. Well, until he gets back, we'll talk about the good movie second, but I'll talk about Studio 666.
Oh, that's a bummer.
And that's that Foo Fighters movie, that horror gore movie. It finally was out on, I don't know what streaming platform, or available for on demand. So after giving the crushing news of losing Taylor Hawkins, R.I.P., the Foo Fighters, which made me super sad and depressed, I gave it like a week or so after that, and then watched this movie. I didn't want to watch it too close. I will say there is a death scene for Taylor Hawkins in that movie at the hands of Dave Grohl, which felt like real bad, having watched that like 5 days after that happened. Like real bad. Yeah, I don't know. It's probably worse than you might expect it would be. I had very low hopes for this. It's got like a 2-hour runtime.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, there are bits of it that are funny. But being that none of them or most of the cast aren't actual actors, even though, I mean, they all do pretty good, right? Like you could argue that Foo Fighters music videos are basically just like, mini comedy shows, or at least the older stuff. So it was passable, right? But it's just not, it moves along at such a slow pace, and they try to like go for the over the top gore equals laughs, But I think by the time they get to that stuff, this movie is so overblown and so long that you just don't, it doesn't pay off. Like, I can't enjoy this in the way I would enjoy like an Army of Darkness or Evil Dead. Because it's just so drawn out that the gore doesn't even make up for it to me. It's just.
So like the goofiness isn't till later in the movie, kind of, or
it's throughout, but yeah, it's just so sporadic and it doesn't hit really, like it doesn't really ramp up until at least an hour in almost, it feels like things happen, but nothing significant. And then it just really goes off the rail for a bit, but then it doesn't wrap up when it should. And it just keeps going with like another twist. And I can't recommend it even as a fan of the band. Like watch it once, but like I got done with that and I was just like, that sucked. I hated that.
Oof, that's bad. Because I mean, seems like you're the target market for that.
Right. Yeah. Basically the whole premise is like, you know, Dave Grohl gets possessed and like, it's the spirit of whatever thing. And it's like to write the perfect like rock song for like inciting murder and death. So it's like, it's basically him trying to like create one like 38-minute song with the band, which is hilarious because Dave Grohl did a one-man band thing where he made like a 28-minute song where he played every instrument. So I'm like, didn't he do this? Didn't this happen? Yeah, I don't know. If there's a condensed version where they cut like 30 minutes out of it, like it could have used some skillful editing, I would say.
Sure.
So I would say that's a hard pass, even for dedicated fans.
It's cool that type of thing can still be made, though. You know.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know, is it cool or is it just like sort of sad that Dave's got like the big enough ego and like clout to get that done and like, you know, made in Hollywood, you know? It almost comes off a little bit like overblown ego turned into reality in this case.
Sure. But I mean, you got to have one, right? Pretty much every major band and whatever had one. I mean, Vanilla Ice had one. Purple Rain.
Those Kiss videos. Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. You got a point. This is probably a better one of those, but yeah. Still not a winner. It had potential.
Yeah. Well, just the bad timing all around, though.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fortunate. And that's what we were talking about before the show. Was like, it was really odd to me that, because I forget, it's a Dream Widow, I think, or is the name of the like.
That's the album, right?
Yeah, and it's the name of the band that they find the lost tapes for in this movie. And he dropped that album. Dave Grohl dropped that like death metal album for the soundtrack for the Studio 666 movie on the day that Taylor Hawkins passed away, which to me is like eerie. You know, nobody's really talking about that online, but to me that's like, ooh.
That's weird, yeah.
It's kind of like bad juju. I don't know.
Yeah. Huh.
But yeah, I give that a skip it. Watch like the highlight reel or watch the trailer. The trailer has the right amount of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Pat Smear is a terrible actor. Like the worst. And they give him like way too many lines. He's like he's kind of like the Shaggy of the movie. He like for no reason sleeps in the kitchen on the countertop just because he likes to get up and have snacks. So, but you and I both caught like a much better movie.
Yeah.
Sonic. See the Sonic 2, and I was lucky enough that they had an early access screening that was like one day ahead of most of national early screening. So I got to see it on the 6th. The movie didn't even come out until the 8th. And the theater was not full.
Did they have like people ask you how much you like it when you walk out?
No, they handed us posters and comics as we went in. I restrained myself and didn't take them, but my kids each got one. I was immediately reminded of why I hate going to actual movies because, you know, post-COVID, I haven't really done that too much yet. And got two, I don't know, 18-year-old somethings that just didn't shut the fuck up through the entire movie.
Wow.
Why two people that age need to narrate everything that's going on in a Sonic movie? I have no idea. I about reached my breaking point. Like I was throwing popcorn at them. They weren't getting it. I was so close to standing up and just be like, shut the fuck up. But I didn't because I had my kids with me. Super irritating. But other than that, that was an enjoyable, fan service filled video game movie.
Yeah, no kidding. Like, I don't know if you could have done that better. Like how you turn a Sonic into a movie. They nailed it, I think.
They did. And the only thing that felt uncomfortable and forced was the fact that they like kind of had to go out of their way to include characters from the prior movie to bring continuity to this one. And that was the only stuff that really didn't fit. And they made it fit in like a weird way.
Yeah, but some of that was pretty funny too.
For sure. Yeah. Like good actors all around. That monster-in-law was like, she was something. She's a good actress. Yeah. I mean, like we were talking a little bit, like the critic scores have been like harder on this one. Audience scores have been phenomenal. But like, I get some of the criticisms, but I think overall it's a much better movie. Jim Carrey, people are saying like he couldn't save it. I'm like, no, he was like the icing on top of an already great movie. Like he was excellent in that.
Yeah, like I felt like Jim Carrey in the first one was weird because he was doing too much Jim Carrey where the rest of it wasn't quite on the same level.
Yeah.
But this, I feel like it was the perfect amount. Like it seemed like it fit in a lot better.
Yeah, and him having like the powerful like buddy character in Knuckles made a lot of sense too. And it really kind of came full circle on the, not everybody knows the Knuckles story and how Knuckles becomes a good guy, but like it really paid off well throughout Carrey's performance. Yeah. Really, my only criticism is that that movie didn't need to be 2 hours and 7 minutes long. But again, I think most of that is because they like did that other subplot to bring in the main characters. And even with it being 2 hours and 7 minutes long, I didn't not enjoy any part of it. Like it could have been shortened up. It could have been edited better, but it was never boring. I was never like, F this, I need to get out of here. It was a great ride. My kids laughed the entire time.
Yep. Yeah, they mix up the shots and where you're at, who you're seeing on the screen. It's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, like the weird forced like bar sequence though, like for the second time in a Sonic movie was a little weird, but other than that, yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah.
And like the nods to like the video game, especially that like user manual. It's like clearly like the old school Genesis grid.
Yeah.
God, that was good. My kids didn't pick up on it, but
yeah, I thought for sure, they were foreshadowing him hating water so much that music, the water music was going to play at some point. It never did. They did reference something from that, but
it did. Yeah. The music would have been perfect though.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a sweet reference too. Yes. It was very good. I did think it was a little, the only thing that I kind of questioned was like, they didn't really touch on it until like it kind of comes full circle. But don't you think it's odd that Robotnik's henchmen just like set up a coffee shop in the town that he like tried to destroy from the first movie? And everybody's just like, nah, that's fine.
Was that for the reference though? They did all of that just for the reference of that?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I did like the reference back to that, but it's just like the same cops who clearly like tried to apprehend this individual from the first movie are just like, no, he's just like, he's the local barista now. It's totally fine.
Yeah, he was brainwashed. It was fine.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's I don't know, the best video game movie. I think so.
I think so. Yeah.
Highest grossing too.
There's no way that Mario could ever pull off something like this because first of all, there's not enough character to go off of on Mario, but I think
this sets a high bar. What does the Mario movie do now? I mean, it's got to be 71 million first weekend US alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then this again, if you stuck around for the end of the first one, stick around for the end of Sonic 2, because I don't think that ride's over yet, with or without Jim Carrey, who says he's retiring. The way they leave that off, it would not matter. It would make more sense, but it still could continue conceivably without. So,
yeah, I was bummed that it jumped that far, but I can see why.
But that's like the next big baddie, right?
I was thinking Metal Sonic, but
oh yeah, that'd be a little too derivative of what ended this one.
Yeah.
Which, come on, when that was happening on screen, you're just like, they're doing it. They're doing it. Yeah. And then it was like so much bigger than I was like, yes, I love this. Yeah. You knew, like, as a video game fan, you knew exactly where it was going, and it was great.
Yep. And that's the coolest part about it. If you know anything about the games, you know what's kind of going to happen.
Yep.
Which is crazy for a 16-bit platformer.
Yeah.
That you know this shit, but.
Yeah. No, I loved it. I actually told my kids the next day, I was like, man, I wish I could watch that again already. Like, I just kind of want to go back and like pay attention to some of the other stuff. So,
yeah.
Give that one a must watch for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I like how I've invented an arbitrary rating system for things this episode that I've never done before. So I hope the audience enjoys that.
Have you ever watched the Sonic Boom cartoon?
Yeah. I like it.
My kids are just having a blast through that thing, and there's some pretty good jokes in that one too. Yeah,
I mean, anything with Amy kind of irritates me a little bit, but
yeah,
my daughter was like, oh, I hope Amy's in the next one. I was like, don't you do that. You leave Amy out of this.
Yeah, there was a great joke that the kids were watching, and I heard the other day, there's like one of the Robotnik made some robot or something, and his name was the Dreamcaster.
Okay.
And they're like, oh, that would have been a horrible name if it wasn't for that at the
end. Nice. Oh, that's great. Well, speaking of hilarious thing kids say, keeping with the watching things theme, I've been watching that Halo series with my son, and 10 minutes into the second episode, he just looked over at me and says, can he just put the helmet back on? And he summed that up in one sentence, because that's what we're all fucking thinking. And that's where they went horribly wrong with this Halo series. They don't even make it through the first episode before the Master Chief takes off his helmet. And he goes most of, I would say 90% of the second episode without putting it back on. They're completely missing the point of the anonymity of that character. He's supposed to be like the hoorah, badass, vanilla everyman, so that you as the player can feel like you are the protagonist. You know what I mean? He's supposed to be generic. That's the point. And then it's the rapist from Orange is the New Black. It's the porn stash guy. I'm just like, I can't see him as anything other than like the psycho from Orange is the New Black. So just completely ruined it for me. Yeah, I don't know. So episode 3 came around, and that falls back into like the universe a little better, but it's still like, I don't think this show isn't good enough for someone who doesn't care about Halo to be interesting, and it's not faithful enough for Halo fans to take it seriously, is kind of what this boils down to. Like, I'm not sure who was going for it. And like, even from that first episode, the build for the Covenant, like the elites are just way overbuilt. You know, they're supposed to be like the Marine equivalent, but these guys are built like fucking linebackers from the NFL. They're just huge for reasons I don't understand. I mean, they're terrifying enough. Like, it's got things, its face opens up like 4 ways. It didn't need to be 500 pounds. I don't understand. Yeah, it's just, there's like a whole subplot. It's like, it's kind of like the birth of how Cortana comes into being. And I don't know. They put a lot of money into it. You can tell it's well enough done. It just feels immediately like it betrays the central character of your favorite video game franchise in a way that isn't good.
Yeah. You never read the books or?
I read the first one.
Okay.
Yeah. So I know there's more lore and backstory, but even then they don't get like
Do they get into like Master Chief at that point, or is it still all the stuff around him?
It's kind of around him, and they do get into John a little bit, but it's always kind of like, that's the thing, is like you always had to work to get to that kind of stuff, right? Like you always have to work to get to the backstory in that universe. So it's just weird to me that they just gave him a personality up front like that. And it's not even well done. It's just kind of like he always follows order. And then some little girl's like, well, why did you kill my mom? Did you ever think maybe there was another side to it? He's like, little girl, that's a good, I didn't think of that. And then that breaks him. And I'm like, come on. I don't know.
It is funny, though, on the game side where everybody freaks out, like, we saw the back of his head. Wow.
Right.
And now you're like, no, just put it back on.
Yeah, put it on. We saw enough. Yeah. It might, depending on where this goes, it might turn into something that was just kind of meh. But like, my son and I showed him Forward Onto Dawn, like maybe a month or so ago. And like, that is so much better done than this. Like Forward Unto Dawn was a great proof of concept for what like a full theatrical movie could. I mean, it basically is, right? But I don't think it like made a national run or anything. That is so much better than this.
Is it better than Red vs. Blue?
I mean, Red vs. Blue is a classic. R.I.P. Machinima. I was at a garage sale somewhere a couple of years ago, and they had like 3 seasons of Red vs. Blue for like $1. I don't know why I did not buy it. I should have. I don't know how well that holds up anymore, though.
That's weird to think about that something online, though, made it onto a disc and then it's at a garage sale.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they were like, think of that blueprint. They were the first people to make a sitcom in an in-game engine for like, you know what I mean? Like they didn't create characters. They just used color skins in a game, didn't mod it at all, and made a sitcom out of it. It's kind of amazing because it's not like there's a range of like motions or anything. You know what I mean? Like you can't independently control anything. It's just like head nods and like pistol whips. It's weird. But that was a great show. Yeah, that ran for a long time too, like 8 seasons or something stupid.
Yeah.
And was it Rooster Teeth that did that?
Yeah.
And then they became like, what they were. Yeah. I don't know. So I would say Halo. I'd probably, if you're into it, still watch it, but just know that, who knows? Maybe they're going to Boba Fett me. Maybe like the last 3 episodes are going to be totally redeem everything, right? It can happen. Probably not gonna.
What would that even be, though? I don't even know what you do for that.
It would be more episodes of Picard. It would just transition into Picard and like finish the new season up, and I would be super happy. Which I've been watching Picard season 2, and that is awesome. Like that is still a great show. Yeah, all the Star Trek stuff on Paramount is great. Even if you're not a big Star Trek person, like my wife definitely is not. And I've been making her watch them, and they're just Picard especially is incredibly well done.
I've heard the next season is just everybody's going to be back.
Yeah, very well could be because they're in like a whole almost like multiverse timeline, quantum dimensional bullshit right now. So
sure,
it could go anywhere at this point. It doesn't mean, I think if you're dead, it doesn't matter. Well, it already didn't matter from the first episode because Picard in this universe is already technically dead. Picard died in the first season. No spoilers for anyone. He's just like a reanimated like robot. And they're like, well, we wanted you to come back, but we don't want to make you God. So they're like, we've aged this machine to the exact age and health condition without the disease that was killing you. So you're going to probably live like another like 6 years. And he's like, yeah, problem solved, story arc, wrapped that up. We can do another season now. It's so weird. And they don't touch on that. They don't touch on the fact that there's like one reference in this season where like one guy makes a comment. He's like, I'm not pretty sure that's just a robot and it's not Picard anymore anyway. I'm like, yes, he is. It's bizarre.
Yeah, that's it's so weird to just like take things 20 years later and just start fucking with them. You know?
I kind of feel like they maybe wrote that as like, this is going to be a one-off season for this, character. And then like he got far enough in, they're like, oh no, we like this. You should do more of this. They're like, well, how how do we bring this full circle? I know, robots. When the whole plot of the first one is that there's like an anti-robot alliance, and that's why they don't have like sentient AIs. Like that's the whole crux of the first season. And they're just like, it's fine for Picard. Don't mind the Borg. That'll work out. I don't know. Still good either way, though. Watch them.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I'm kind of like, oh, maybe I should get Paramount. But
I think getting it for a couple months at this point, or even just putting it up for a year, you'll get your money's worth at this point. Especially since you'll have Sonic 2 on there by fall. You can watch it one more time. But Paramount's better than HBO Max to me, and probably Hulu, but it's about as irrelevant as Hulu, where it's like, yeah, there's a show a year I might want to watch on there.
Yeah.
I don't know. But at least with Picard, like, it amazes me how Patrick Stewart has been the same age for like my entire adult life.
An old man, yeah.
Yeah, I just kind of like it. Like, he's the same. He never ages. So.
Yep. Just a bald old man.
Just a bald old sumbitch. Yeah.
Huh. Well, I did watch something on Netflix, which was kind of crazy. I haven't watched anything on Netflix in a long time.
Yeah.
But me and the wife watched through Midnight Mass.
Okay.
Which is, it's kind of a horror movie or horror show. It's only like 7 episodes. But boy, it's, once you get to the 3rd episode, it's just got you like tightly gripped where you just gotta see it to the end. And man, yeah, it's really good. It's about like this old, like this really derelict fishing island.
Okay.
Seems like a Canadian island or something like that, maybe.
And people go to it and bad things happen.
Yeah, there's a church there, and there's something that happens, and you can use the Bible in a number of different ways to say it's in line with that.
Okay.
And, you know, you can basically what the crux of the show is using scripture and stuff to justify pretty much anything. Because there's enough of it that you can. Right. Which you can twist it in any way that you want.
Is this a series or just reality? Because I feel like there's a fine line.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not going to watch it, I'll probably tell you later, but it's really interesting what they do for sure.
Okay. Well, it sounds right up my alley. So is it like, how does it come off? Is it like people show up to investigate this thing and like it unfolds, or how is it?
So like they're expecting their priest to be back, but it becomes a different priest. And then a whole bunch of other stuff happens since that priest comes.
Oh, so the new priest is not good. He has midnight masses?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the crux of the show is a midnight mass, I would say. But
is this a Netflix original?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I'll have to check that out. I'm kind of out of shows right now, so.
I mean, it's only it's only 7 episodes. I will say there is a lot of the show is just people talking to each other.
Okay.
But it's like, it's amazing how well they can create a character, and like you absolutely know each person on that island and what they're about, what they stand for, and who you're pulling for, who you hate in, you know, a few hours.
Interesting. This has nothing to do with that show, but I literally watched a Loudwire reasons not to start a band montage right before we started recording, and I laughed my ass off because it was clearly in a church and it was a band performing Christian music, and there's a giant, the drummer for whatever reason is already in a protective box, like soundproof box. Then there's a giant like 12-foot wooden cross, and the wooden cross just falls off the wall and crushes the box, like, and everybody else just keeps playing. And I was like, well, if that isn't a sign from God,
yeah.
I don't know.
Pick a different one. Wow.
I laughed pretty good at it.
Man. Yeah. And to be to be, the one time that you're maybe in that box.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. It was just, what are the odds? It was pretty good. But just, Midnight Mass made me think of that. Trying to think what else I got. There's been so much. I got my Series X that came in. I got it finally set up. I don't know. I think I mentioned we ordered it the last time we had the podcast.
Yeah, you needed a cable or something.
Yeah. Got that running. Had to get my 12-foot HDMI cable in, and yeah, the thing is significant. Like, you notice right away, because I had been playing on my Xbox One. I'd been playing Guardians of the Galaxy on cloud, and can I just, before I even get into the visual difference, can I just say how fucking nice it is with that ecosystem? That I hook up a completely different box and just sign into my account, and it's like, no, here's your game save. There's not even like no, here's your game save. You just boot it up and it knows. It's right. It's phenomenal. It's like as seamless as you'd ever dreamed it could be. It's just so pain-free. So anyway, I just started it right back up. It knew exactly where I was from the cloud, and like, holy crap, even though I was still going from the cloud, which I will say, it still does like the refresh judder that you get with the cloud on like higher end games, but looked fantastic. Ran so much smoother. The cloud stuff is way better on the X, and just that visual overall, like the attention to detail and like the finer details combined with just the lighting, it's instantly like this huge jump. I mean, It's not earth shattering. It's not like, oh my God, like I jumped from the PlayStation to PlayStation 2. But it's like, like this is it's better in like subtle ways that combined are so significant. It's kind of amazing. I feel like it's what we thought games look like 2 generations ago, but now they finally do. You know what I mean?
They are. Yeah. Yeah. I've been playing the new baseball game. It's my yearly tradition of getting full bore into the new baseball game for about 2 weeks, and then finding out that, baseball games are actually boring if you keep playing them. But the attention to detail on just like the players and their faces, and just like, that's who that guy that's his face, which is just, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's good. And just like, it's the little things too that you don't think about. Like, I didn't wait for stuff to load in. Like, things just transitioned. Like, it just works so smoothly and streamlined in like every little way that it's like you almost take for granted this like generational leap in technology, like almost instantly. I think what blew me away was I downloaded it, Forza 5, Horizon 5. And like, you're like, yeah, this looks great. And my son's driving. And then I realized like, he's flying through an area that's already in a dirt storm. And then he goes off the road and like obliterates like 1,000 cactuses. Everything explodes on screen, pixels everywhere. And like, it's locked at like 64K. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't even hiccup. And that's when you're like, holy shit. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah, that game is a showpiece. So that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, God, I mean, how bigger do you go with a video game opening? Like, just the most video game ass shit. Like, you just, plane flies overhead. It's a pooping cars out. You're driving. It's great. Like, it's the biggest, dumbest car racing game. I loved it. I don't know how much I'll sink into that, but yeah, what a great video game.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, that's when I was, two generations ago. That's when I was playing Need for Speed Underground.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like it was that game, but it really wasn't, because you still had to stick to the streets, and they had guardrails on everything. Well, and even Burnout Paradise too, which I love. Like, yeah, I felt the same way. Like, you felt like so free, but like, no, like that Horizon 5 is like anywhere is your road. Yep.
Yeah. It's nuts. I will say, kind of going back to that Guardians, now that I played more of that game does not get any more fun to play. I'm like 5 chapters into that thing now. I don't know how long it is, but like, they come in with more quick time elements and just I really do not enjoy the gameplay in that game at all. If it didn't have such an entertaining story and narrative, I'd be off that thing. It's just the further I get in, the more I get into the storyline and the less I enjoy playing it. It's just really weird.
Are you doing like almost 100% just sending commands to the other team?
Nah, I mean it's more action focused, but I would say like when you're in like the big set piece battles, that's got to be at least 40% of what you're managing.
Okay.
And none of it feels satisfying, and that's kind of the bad part. And then they really start introducing a lot of random quick time stuff, and it just doesn't need to be there. Like, just let's move the narrative plot point along and screw that. So
sure.
Yeah. Huh. Star-Lord apparently has like a bastard child, though, so that's interesting.
Oh yeah,
you learned that pretty early on.
Huh.
Like I don't know like the genetics or like biology of how like interspecies mating works, but apparently blue people and white people make babies too. So
wow, isn't his dad a planet or something like that?
That's true. Yeah. Okay. Good point. He's not exactly human. Yeah. He's just a ball of energy. And his dad fucked everything in the galaxy. Tentacles, slime. He didn't care. He had kids with it. Now it all makes sense.
Zeus.
Oh gosh.
Well, I've retired from farming. I think
Stardew Valley is you done with?
I think so. We kind of skipped a few days and then we kind of dropped it. And my wife picked up a different farming game on the Switch, so I think I'm in the clear on
Farming
that.
Simulator? Or?
It was Story of Seasons.
Okay.
It's like a Harvest Moon thing.
Okay.
But yeah, that was, wow. I think we clocked in at just under 140 hours on that thing.
That's nuts, man.
Yeah.
In like a month's time.
Yeah. And we got most of the stuff done, but there's, this tracker that you get 100%. And some of the stuff just seems unreasonable. So it's not worth going for.
Is it endless? Like, could you just keep going and going and going, or does it ever like roll credits and it's over?
I don't know if there's like any credits. I'm sure that at some point, maybe the perfect thing, you get a credit, but I bet you could keep going. I don't know what you would earn. I mean, you'd earn more money with nothing to spend it on.
Tedium.
Yeah.
Well, I'm impressed that you guys sunk that much time into it. It's funny because my boss came up to me last week and was like, "You ever played Stardew Valley?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Yeah, we booted it up." He's like, "Talk about a snooze fest." I was like, "That's hilarious," because my buddy and his wife have like 120 hours into it. I'm like, "I'm with you. I couldn't do it, but like they're all about it."
Yeah. That's pretty funny.
I just think it's amazing how successful Stardew Valley is when like it's just essentially Harvest Moon, and nobody's talked about Harvest Moon games as much constantly in pop culture as Stardew Valley has been talked about since it released.
Mm-hmm.
Weird.
Well, I think there's a big difference because it is pretty much the same thing. Obviously, it's only like 2D, but there's a lot more like realistic characters in it, development. Because like the Harvest Moon ones, and even like the one she's playing right now, it's just like I'm the geek, and I'm the I'm the jock, and they all, every time you talk to him, there's nothing to him. There's just paper thin character to him. Whereas Stardew, you have like a guy who's really struggling with depression, or a town drunk, and the mayor is sneaking around with the other farmer lady, and yeah. So there's a lot more stuff going on in that respect. But plus you can make like wine and shit like that, where in those other games you wouldn't touch any alcohol, That's
what Animal Crossing has been missing, is the vineyard.
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo should really punch that up.
Yeah.
Get Tom Nook drunk and then clear your ledger balance for your house.
Tom Nook would definitely start a weed farm. Well, hemp farm, I should say. He would be more on the hemp side, so on the hemp.
I'm just picturing him with a Hawaiian shirt with like pot leaves on it now.
Yep.
I like it.
We're running a special on CBD oil today, so.
At least he teaches kids about landlords and how you just can't win. That deposit from your apartment, you're never getting that back, kids. That's the lesson Tom Nook should teach you. Oh, gosh. Well, I mean, it's only a matter of time until you guys find the next game to put 140 hours into. So.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It's a lot of time.
You could put time into Ark.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to try that out. I played with Biff a little bit. It had the tether effect, though, which I think was... The thing is like Series X is supposed to be like modified so that and enhanced so that if you run it on a Series X as the host player, it shouldn't have a tether, but I can't get a definitive answer on it because the tethering is not a gameplay setting. So it seems to be a hardware spec setting. And the only thing I can figure is that because he was using a Series S, the tether comes into play. So he was having a real hard time with that. And like, he doesn't seem to understand. Like, he's like, well, what do we do? I'm like, the world wants you dead. Try not to do like, everything wants to kill us. We got to make sure that doesn't happen and find our own fun. And like, I don't know. I think between him trying to like figure it out, and I was struggling too, because I hadn't played it in forever. And then me tethering him all over the place. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to really get him back into that. But we'll have to try it.
So it's a survival crafty, that type of game, right?
Yeah.
Is it, so the thing that we tried that 7 Days to Die or whatever, I kind of booted that up for a little while. Same type of thing. The only thing I didn't like was like, oh shit, you're going to have this attack that you're going to have to prepare for.
Yeah. And that's my favorite part of 7 Days to Die.
Oh, see, I didn't like the time limit of like, you got to get all this done to this. Like I like that part of games, but on my own timetable, I would say.
I think 7 Days to Die is more fun when you change the settings on that to be random. So you don't know when you're getting screwed. Oh, gosh. Until like 10 o'clock that day. And then like everything turned, like the text counter turns red and you're like, oh shit. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess there's not that, there's just more like, there's little explanation to anything and a lot of OP dinosaurs and things like that can kill you. So,
but that's mainly to just push on to find more resources and
right.
You're encountering that stuff. Yeah.
And there's just like I've never progressed too far into it because it was just so limiting with the tethering on previous consoles. There's just so much depth from like where you start in that game, like naked to like, I'm a spaceman with a laser gun riding like a Tyrannosaurus with a jetpack. You know what I mean? Like it just goes some good places. And I was hoping to do like a private closed room, but if the tethering becomes a problem, we might have to consider just joining like one of their official servers. So we'll see. Like I said, I think you and I should try with our Series X's and just see what happens. But otherwise, just joining an open PvP game could be entertaining for a while, if not incredibly defeating. It's just, there's a lot of systems in Ark that are rough. Like everything is set on a decay loop, including like food and things like that. So it's like everything is impermanent, a
little bit of a Sims thing going on too then.
Yeah. And you like feed your animals. There's like breeding timelines and gestation. And
this sounds like Harvest Moon a little bit, but
yeah, it could be. I mean, we could definitely build a farm. Yeah. My favorite was like, we got into a punching fight and then Biff knocked me out. So then I punched him and knocked him out and drug his body out into the ocean to let him drown. But he came back too before he finally died. So, we had a bad encounter with a megalodon that didn't go well. And I kept going for my body. And I think that broke Biff because he's like, no, it's like, it's gone. Leave it. I'm like, I'm getting closer. I'm getting like 5 feet closer to shore every time. And I just kept doing it. And there was really no point because we were so early game that you just recraft everything you had anyway. But
sure. So it's got Dark Souls body runs, basically.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah.
Which I could see being important in later game if you got rare items, but I didn't have anything crazy. Yeah. But yeah, I think it could be fun. The thing is like, can we sink enough time into it to make it fun where you're not just like constantly trying to learn how to play it? Because I feel like it's a game where you need to invest a few hours a week or more. So might not be realistic. Maybe we'll have to do something different, like Back for Blood or something.
Yeah.
But those.
Well, the PvP stuff really sucks in that regard too, because one day somebody just rolls up and
yes,
you're broke.
Raids you. Yeah, that sucks. Yeah, 100%. I should look. Maybe there's servers where that's not like PvP is turned off. If that was the case, it'd be better. Yeah. Other people in online video games tend to make that miserable in that like open world sense. I've never done that with 7 Days to Die either. So did you play that on console or did you play that on PC?
I played it on PC a little bit. Yeah. I didn't get too far. Not much past that initial house or whatever.
Yeah. Should have had you join when we had that server for a while. There was like 6 months where Justin and I had like an active server that just ran all the time. That's the way to do it. So you can just jump in and out of a game.
Oh yeah.
But he worked an opposite schedule. So we were never on the same schedule. And I got sick of like getting to Horde Night by myself. Like you can't win in that. You know, if you're soloing 7 Days to Die without adjusting settings, like it's really tough to make that fun because it's just a scramble to like not get effed every 7 days.
Yeah. Huh.
But with 2 people, you can easily get it to the point where like you've cheesed the game and the Horde Night is no longer a problem too.
Right.
After some time. Like, it's a weird game because you almost have to reset the server after so long because it's like, well, I'm in an unbeatable position. So let's start over. Like you kind of have to.
Which is a bummer, yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
I still love that game. I wish they would port that and get it back on current consoles. Because, you know, they lost the rights and got them back, but haven't wanted to pay the money. And that game's never out of early access. And I know like I know the patching and update fees had been horrendous in the past, but it seems like Microsoft at the very least, I don't know how much on Sony, is getting more into that like open beta model. You know, you see it with some of the other stuff. So maybe, because I think that game still is pretty popular on PC. And I think if they could get a strong updated console version, because I don't know how many people, I don't know how many people played it previous gen, but like what that game has now become, it's so much better since like patch 19, alpha 19, way better. They overhauled everything. It's actually a really good game now.
Which is crazy that there was a press disc for that then, you know?
Yeah, and I think they stopped patching that at like alpha. They patched it for a little ways, but I think they stopped at like alpha 13 or so. I think they had just gotten like the early like trader sort of stuff in there, which is what opened it up a lot when you start getting like bounty missions and things like that. So that could come back. That's a game that I love that game. If I had people to play it with, I'd go back to playing it like on the regular, but coordinating schedules. Yeah. Well, you've got it on PC. Maybe we'll have to try it again. You got it on Steam?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
It's a good one. But there again, you run into the problem of like, it'd have to be online at the same time because it'd have to be one of our games instead of a server. So maybe when our adult responsibilities go away, we'll have time for that.
20 years, yeah. Boot up 7 Days to Die.
Yeah. Well, speaking of other sad news and dying, we're talking about 7 Days to Die. Did you see who passed away today?
Yeah.
Freaking Gilbert Godfrey, man.
Jeez.
Ridiculous.
I just saw a picture of like they were doing a selfie of Bob Saget, Louis Anderson, and Gilbert Gottfried all in the same picture. It's like, holy cow.
I saw another one with Bob Saget, Gilbert Godfrey, and Norm Macdonald all sitting in a booth.
Jeez.
Like not that long ago.
Yeah.
A whole generation of comic geniuses have been wiped out in like this year already, which is mind blowing. Sad.
It's just weird how like Well, like we were talking, Bob Saget known for Full House, but also most of what his career is not that. Same thing with Gilbert Gottfried. Everybody's like, oh no, the parrot from Aladdin.
Right.
You know,
not the most raunchy, foul human being in the world of comedy.
Nope.
I still love, did you ever watch that like documentary of him or like that introspective sort of thing from a couple of years ago?
I don't think so, no.
I don't know if it was just called Gilbert or God, but yeah, they kind of talk, they go into his personal life more than you'd ever really see because he's such a private guy. And yeah, he's just kind of a weird dude and like super mild mannered, normal dude at home with little kids. And apparently he never flies anywhere. So he does like, when he does his shows, he just busses. He busses everywhere. He always like takes all the complimentary stuff he can get from every hotel he goes to. So his wife's like pulling out like tubs underneath their bed that's just full of like tiny travel soaps and like deodorant, more than he'd ever use in a lifetime. And then my favorite part though is like his wife is just kind of talking about how they've met and like their relationship and stuff, and you know how he's just kind of like Gilbert. And so she's like going through her drawer and like reading all these like pulling out all these cards she's saved from different things like birthdays and whatever. She's like, oh, here's one from our 5th anniversary. And I don't remember what her name is. She's like, dear blah, blah, blah. Fuck you. Like, that's all he wrote in the card. And I'm just like, that is amazing. Yeah. It's crazy. What gets me with all these guys though is it's like, man, they're just like mid 60s. So I'm at that point in my life where like, I'm going to be 40 this year. And I'm like, I'm working to get to 60 so I can retire. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I'm wasting my entire life in an office and I'm going to be dead of whatever, like everybody's dying. Like, it's so depressing.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then Taylor Hawkins again, the guy's 50, man.
Yeah. If these guys don't have a chance, we don't.
This reality of I might be working my entire life to just not enjoy I mean, I obviously enjoy day-to-day life, but you know what I mean? Like the grand payoff that America has taught us we all work for. Like, am I just setting myself up for a couple of years of misery and defeat? Because it makes me sad.
That's only for baby boomers. We all know that.
Yeah. I don't know. That's not going to happen for us or me as a geriatric millennial.
No.
Yeah. Not good.
That's weird.
It's weird. And it's sad. Plus with him, like they didn't really say what it was. They just said like a long-term battle with an illness. They must have been keeping something under wraps.
Yeah.
Which I guess is
it's
the
not like
thing too.
Bob Saget who bumped his head, basically. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's what they ended up saying, right? Like fainted, hit his head. They figure whacked it on like a counter or something. What a way to go. At least he had his pants on, I guess, right? Like,
yeah.
That's my fears. Like you pass out somewhere and your pants are at your ankles. Because then you shit yourself when you die. So then you're just sitting there in your own shit with your junk out.
Yeah, it's not a David Carradine situation at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that might be an episode unless you got anything else to add.
No.
We never did get Biff back.
I can check Twitter to see if anybody else has died.
Oh, gosh. But... Twitter death poll. Yeah, I wonder what happened with Biff's internet. Like, he tried to come back like twice, then he just must have given up in frustration.
No.
Not even I'm not coming back text. It's just like, screw you guys, I'm going home. Or I'm staying offline, I guess, because he was already at home.
Going to bed.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that leaves you with ending the podcast, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Lucky you.
Yeah. All right, folks. You listen to another one of the Weekend Rental podcasts. If you'd like to contact us, we have an email address just for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's weekendrentalpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. We're on Facebook, Twitter. That's probably the best places to get a hold of us as well. Other than that, don't really have anything else to say. So we're going to end this one right now with Be Kind, Rewind.
Gotta go fast.
Shadow bananas.